Hey there, Parker Reed here, and welcome to PR Media, your home for everything movies and music through my eyes. And today we have a review of the brand new Marvel film, Spider-Man No Way Home. With Spider-Man's identity now revealed, our friendly neighborhood web-slinger is unmasked and no longer able to separate his normal life as Peter Parker from the high stakes of being a superhero. When Peter asks for help from Doctor Strange, the stakes become even more dangerous, forcing him to discover what it truly means to be Spider-Man. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time. I remember growing up with the Tobey Maguire movies and enjoying but not loving the Andrew Garfield films, and I like Tom Holland well enough. I think he feels very much in the MCU. They don't feel like Spider-Man movies to me. They feel like Spider-Man in the MCU films, and that's not all bad because we have those first 5 movies. I do enjoy Tom Holland, but I really wanted him to come into his own in his next Spider-Man movie, and with all the returning cast here in Spider-Man No Way Home, yeah, that's a tall order. And before we go into the specifics of Spider-Man No Way Home, know this is going to be a no spoilers video. Anything not in the trailers I'm not going to touch. There are a lot of surprises in this film I would not want to ruin for you, so know that you will not have any spoilers in this video. So let's get right into it. To start things off, I think this is the best movie that Tom Holland has been in the Spider-Man franchise. I think it's better than Homecoming. I think it's better than Far From Home. In this movie, he really becomes Spider-Man. He comes into his own, and that's kind of ironic because this movie was almost made to cash in that nostalgia of the old Spider-Man films. So for Tom Holland to shine in this movie, that was really surprising because Tom Holland really delivers his best performance as Spider-Man yet. There's some tear-jerking moments, and you really feel the gravitas of his character and his character arc in this film, and Tom Holland deserves a slow clap for this movie. And the big topic of discussion is going to be all the returning cast here. I'm not going to touch if Tobey or Andrew are in this movie. I'm just going to be talking about the villains that are in the trailers, that being Doc Ock, Sandman, Electro, Lizard, and the Green Goblin. And overall, I think they all deliver really great performances, in particular Doc Ock and especially Willem Dafoe as the Green Goblin. They don't feel like rehashes of Spider-Man villains that were 20 years ago. They feel like these characters have grown a little bit. They've refined their performances, and while they do throw around their catchphrases quite a bit, like, you know, I'm somewhat of a scientist myself, I think that they do it in just good fun, and you can't put them in this movie and not mention those whatsoever. I think the fans would be pissed off. It's fan service at its finest, where it is a bit over the heads of some of the less hardcore fans, but it does satisfy those hardcore fans while still being in service of the story being told right now. I will say though, Alfred Molina as Doc Ock, I think he went a little bit too energetic and too hammy at times. It felt like he was overacting and he was in his own separate movie. It felt like he was trying to be in a more ballooned up version of Spider-Man 2. It didn't always belong. He does hit most of the time, but there are a few moments where he just doesn't really gel that much. I was nervous going into this movie thinking it was just going to be another ham-fisted nostalgia bait kind of film. Whenever there's a Spider-Man sequel that just stuffs the villains in there, aka Spider-Man 3 or The Amazing Spider-Man 2, I get nervous. I thought it was going to be overstuffed, but thankfully this movie is very refined. It stays on course for the most part. For the first 20-30 minutes when they're dealing with Doctor Strange, it gets a little bit off kilter, but then they really refine it, and it feels like a Spider-Man movie. It doesn't feel like a Tom Holland in the MCU Spider-Man movie. It feels like an actual Spider-Man movie where we're dealing with Peter Parker. We're not dealing with Iron Man or the Ghost of the Iron Man or the Avengers or anything like that. It's strictly a Spider-Man movie. And going back to those villains, they really do play into this film. They don't just feel like they're there for 5 minutes to say their catchphrases and they're casted off screen. They actually have character arcs. Some even have better character arcs than they do in their own original films where they were the main antagonist. And there's even some growth with some of the returning characters like Ned and MJ, especially MJ and Peter. Their love story and their connection throughout this film, it's really the crux of it. This movie could have been made or broken based on whether that relationship works or not, whether we care about that enough, whether that's going to be a 1 or 2 off nostalgia bait, let's all just fucking jerk off to Spider-Man, or this is going to be a movie you can return to, you're going to get some emotional value from, and I think that relationship is really nailed here, and it even had me welling up in a Spider-Man movie. I've seen Spider-Man movies in the theaters for almost 20 years now, dating back to 2004 when I saw Spider-Man 2 with my dad when I was 7, 8 years old. But this movie does suffer a little bit from the classic MCU problem of conflicting tones. Sometimes some more heartfelt and tender moments are cut off by a joke almost instantly. You're like, oh my gosh, I'm starting to feel something. All of a sudden, nope, cut it off with a joke. And especially the opening, it starts quite dark, but after about 5 minutes of dark material, we're met with jokes, and they just kind of skate around it a little bit. I wish they would have went headfirst a little bit more, like that Spider-Man 2 sort of energy, or the ending of Amazing Spider-Man 2. But overall, this is the darkest Tom Holland Spider-Man film, and I really did appreciate it for that. And without getting into any more spoilers, because this movie is incredibly hard to talk about without spoilers, I really enjoyed Spider-Man No Way Home. It's my favorite Spider-Man movie that's come out probably since Spider-Man 2. I think that's a safe bet. There hasn't been a lot of stellar movies. I think that the first two Spider-Man movies in the Tom Holland trilogy were good, but they're not nearly as good as No Way Home. And there's a lot of surprises. Go out and see this as soon as you possibly can, because spoilers are going to be ever present. You're going to get pelted with them on meme pages and pretty much every corner of the internet. So go out and see Spider-Man No Way Home as soon as you possibly can in theaters, and I'm going to give it a solid 9 out of 10. If they would have cleaned up that tone a little bit and had all the performances more on par, I think this movie would have been a 10 out of 10, but it's got a solid 9 for me, and this is a highly recommended film for me. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like what you saw here, you can check us out on Facebook or Instagram, and like, comment, and subscribe if you so choose. My name is Parker Reed. You've been watching PR Media. Keep supporting physical media, and I'll see you next time. Thanks, guys.
This is all my fault. I can't save everyone.
What's happening?
They're starting to come through, and I can't stop them.